With Zambia heading towards another general election, the ongoing discussions about constitutional amendments have sparked intense debate. Some argue that the timing is questionable, while others raise legal concerns over the process. But today, on Politics Aside, we are taking a different approach. Instead of debating whether the amendment should or shouldn't happen, we ask, are there provisions in the Constitution that objectively deserve a second look before we go to the polls? Let's set politics aside and take a closer, factual look at some key provisions that could impact the fairness and functionality of our electoral process. The first point is the 14-day presidential petition deadline, Article 101, Section 5, and 103, Section 2. The Constitution allows for 14 days for a presidential petition to be heard and determined. While the intention is to ensure swift resolution of electoral disputes, does this time frame provide enough room for a fair trial? Case in point, in 2016 presidential petition, when opposition leader Hakainde Hichilema petitioned the 2016 election results, the case was dismissed without being fully heard because the 14-day deadline had expired. Lawyers argued that this provision placed unreasonable limitation on the right to a fair hearing. Now imagine a scenario in 2026 where the election is highly contested, there are allegations of electoral malpractice, the petitioners need time to gather evidence, subpoena witnesses, and argue their case. Would 14 days be enough for a due process? And if not, should we extend the deadline to ensure fairness? Well, the second point is withdrawing from a presidential race, Article 52, subsection 6. Well, according to the Constitution, if a presidential candidate withdraws from a race after nominations close, fresh nominations must be held. While this sounds logical, it poses some practical challenges. Timing. What if a candidate withdraws close to the election date? Would this delay the entire process? Strategic withdrawals. Could candidates withdraw to manipulate election timing or cause unnecessary reruns? Consider this. If a major candidate drops out 2 weeks before the election, should the entire process restart? Or should the remaining candidates proceed to the election? Again, is it worth reviewing before we get to the ballot box? The third point being the president's limited pool for cabinet appointments, Article 116, Section 1 and Section 2. Zambia's constitution limits the president to appoint only 8 cabinet ministers from outside parliament, meaning the majority must come from elected members of parliament. Well, what is the problem? Well, it restricts the president's ability to select highly qualified technocrats. Imagine a scenario where a renowned economist or public health expert could significantly improve governance. But they are not an MP, they are not a politician. The president wants to appoint a specialist in areas like education, finance, or foreign affairs, but he is limited to politicians rather than professionals. Other countries allow broader appointments based on merit, ensuring expertise in ministries. Should Zambia rethink this restriction to create a more competent cabinet? Well, the fourth point being the Chief Justice's limited role in constitutional interpretation, Article 121. The Chief Justice, as you know, is the head of the judiciary. Yet, they have little or no power over the constitutional interpretation. Instead, Constitutional Court and Supreme Court handle these matters. Why does this matter? The Chief Justice is expected to oversee judiciary but cannot directly shape how the Constitution is interpreted. This creates fragmentation. One person leads judiciary, but another group has the final say on the constitutional law. Would it make sense for the head of the judiciary to have more influence over how the Constitution is interpreted? The fifth and last point I really want us to discuss today is the famous proportional representation, which is Article 47. Zambia's first past the post system means the candidate with the most votes in a constituency wins, even if they only secure 30 to 40% of the vote. The problem? Well, many votes go to West, leaving a significant portion of the electorate unrepresented. Smaller parties struggle to gain seats, even if they have substantial national support. A proportional representation system could allow seats in parliament to be allocated based on the total votes nationwide, ensuring a more balanced and inclusive parliament. Take Rwanda, for instance. It uses proportional representation. And today, over 60% of its parliament is female, the highest in the world. Youth and the marginalized groups have a better shot at representation in parliament. Would such a system improve Zambia's democracy, or would it complicate things? Should we revisit these provisions? As we move towards the elections, these constitutional provisions are worth reflecting on, not necessarily to change them immediately, but to ask, are they helping or hindering fairness? Do they serve the interest of Zambians, or do they need adjustment? The Constitution is the backbone of our democracy. If there are provisions that could improve governance and fairness in our elections, shouldn't we take time to discuss them before we go to the polls? Let's keep the conversation going, politics aside.